and we are now going to defer to our Kevin Burkhardt with much more answers. Kevin, did you see this coming?
Well, not yet. The timetable is the one thing that I didn't see coming, but it was inevitable. I mean, there was talk. Could he actually go to spring training, and what purpose would that serve? Look, Jason Bay was done here. 3 years were enough. For what the Mets contract, it was. This is an organization obviously that have had their share of not great moves, starting with the Tom Seaver trade, but. This is one of the worst moves they've ever made, and it just comes down to that. For 3 years, Jason Bay never produced. He's a .234 hitter. He struck out more than 25% of the time, and he had 26 home runs in 3 years. The Mets were hoping they'd get that more in 26 home runs in the first year. He also didn't have much luck in terms of health. He had a couple of bad concussions. They couldn't bring him back, because I think there's a combination of, he had a bad first year and a half, but then I think it just got the pressure of New York just weighed in, and it was too much to handle. So I think, Jason Bay's going to get his money. I think the Mets maybe will save a little bit, deferring it for a couple of years to ease some of that. But, it also wouldn't shock me to see him go somewhere else, maybe even his hometown of Seattle, and get back to playing a lot better baseball. So it's something that had to be done, Michelle. They could not bring him back. 3 years were enough for Jason Bay. And, to say a positive thing about him, dealing with him, he handled all of those failures as well as anyone I think could ever handle himself with the media. He really was. He was a true pro. And I think a lot of fans realize that, and that's why they wanted him to succeed. But bottom line is he just never produced, didn't have one real stretch of ever producing for the Mets, and so he's gone.
Now, he missed 198 games in 3 seasons with the Mets. That's a lot of games, Kevin. Was there a breaking point, do you think, at some point?
Well, I mean, he didn't have any luck, that's for sure. But, I mean, some of those were just results of playing hard. He injured himself this year diving for a ball in the outfield head first, ran into a wall in L.A. as hard as you can run into it, trying to make it spectacular. The guy played hard, Michelle, and it wasn't it wasn't like he came here and was a dog. He just came here and wasn't any good. There is a difference. But, the Mets gave him $66 million. Go back to that offseason. It was he or Matt Holliday. Matt Holliday got, basically double that contract with the Cardinals. Well, Matt Holliday is a championship player. And Jason Bay is nothing that they thought he would be. It just never worked out. The health was, I think, a factor for sure. But I think after the first year, the factors that were involved of his lack of production were the health and just the pressure of playing here. I don't think it bothered him in year one. But let's face it, you signed a big deal to come to New York and just can never get on any run, never had a good month. It's gonna be a wall that you're gonna run into. And I just think that there was no way they could bring him back. No one's gonna trade for Jason Bay right now. The Mets figured, hey, let's get a clean start. Let's go to spring with somebody else, and we'll pay him. Maybe we'll save ourselves a couple bucks and defer it for a couple of years, and that's what they did.
Well, that's just it. Reports are saying that Bay will get all the money that's owed to him. But, do you think that the team was just so desperate to get rid of him and start a clean slate?
Well, there's no way in the world that Jason Bay said, I'll take only $8 million to leave. No. I mean, player contracts in Major League Baseball are guaranteed. He doesn't have to give that up for any reason. So he's going to get his money. But, they were desperate. They could not bring him back. They needed to move on because there's nothing else that you're going to see here. I think that the way this season ended for Bay, he wasn't even playing. I mean, he wasn't even playing in meaningful games in September. What does that tell you? You think the manager, Terry Collins, is going to run him out there in April? No chance. So if he was here in spring and was still here on opening day, he was going to sit the bench, and that does you absolutely no good.
Now, Kevin, with the money that the Mets have now, what kind of moves do you think that they will make?
Well, they don't have a ton of money. I mean, they have still committed a lot of this to Bay. I don't know the exact number yet, Michelle, of what they will, use to pay Bay this year. I don't know how many years they deferred it or anything like that. But I don't think it's going to save them a ton of money. I mean, maybe if it saves them anything at all. I think, really the Mets were looking at, and Sandy Alderson are looking at a couple of things in rebuilding this team. It's A, bringing up the kids like Harvey and Zach Wheeler and those guys and hoping they perform. And B, continue to clearing big money off the books so then you can go out and spend some money on free agents. Well, big money, they're still going to be paying Bay. They're still going to be paying Johan Santana that monster deal. They are, by all accounts, going to sign David Wright to a long-term extension and, probably going to sign R.A. Dickey, although I would not be sold that he's not traded. So I don't think they're going to have a lot of money to spend. I think there's going to be a creative offseason for the Mets where they're going to try and lock up They're face of the franchise and right. They're going to try and move some guys around to get a better offense, and they're not going to go out and sign, Josh Hamilton or anybody else like that. It's just going to be the way it is. Their payroll is going to be about $100 million, and that's the way it's going to be.
So all in all, it isn't a huge surprise now that Bay and the Mets have parted ways. Kevin, we thank you so much for your time.